I was going to say, with apologies to the younger folks here today, we're going to talk about aging, but it's coming your way too. So I hope it's relevant to everybody. Old age has sort of been popping up in Sangha recently for many of us and in life. And, there's millions of metaphors, maybe not millions, thousands, hundreds of metaphors for old age because it's this sort of phase of life that creeps in subtly, often unannounced, and then kind of catches up with us. And many of us in the Sangha are getting older, and I want to address today some aspects of aging through the lens of the Dharma. Aging brings things like physical decline, shifting perceptions, but also a deeper awareness, and this is really something I've experienced lately, more in-your-face awareness of impermanence. From a Buddhist perspective, though, Buddhism really approaches aging differently than we do in the West. The challenges and transformations of aging through a Buddhist lens are not seen as a sign of despair, but really a profound opportunity for spiritual growth and freedom. Because the emphasis on impermanence and how we cultivate our mindfulness and how we find wisdom in the fleeting nature of existence. That if we really key into those, it really becomes a different perspective on aging. It provides a practical framework, Buddhism does, for navigating the uncertainties of aging, and aging is nothing if not filled with uncertainties. And of course, as you know, at the heart of the Buddhist path is the concept of impermanence. And aging is a period of continuous change where nothing can be taken for granted. Our bodies grow frail, our senses start to weaken, our desires and passions shift to a different and even more fragile context. And while these changes often evoke feelings of loss and vulnerability, the Buddhist path reminds us that impermanence is not only inevitable, but it's also a fundamental characteristic of life itself. The Buddha likened life to a flowing river, ever-changing, never static. And in old age, this truth becomes particularly apparent. We are reminded that clinging to youth, trying to cling to youth, hold on to it, cling to vitality or certainty, only leads to more suffering. Instead, the Dharma encourages us to see impermanence not as a threat, but as a teacher. That's really the essence of what I want to convey today. When we stop resisting change, begin to accept it, we can find peace even amidst the uncertainties of aging. It's a challenge, I know, but it's an important intention because this means observing the changes in our bodies and our minds with curiosity rather than aversion. For example, moments of sudden physical frailty, my knee sort of went out the other day, a cramp in the hand, are glimpses of a larger loss. They're a reminder of this path that we're on. These moments, while unsettling, are opportunities for mindfulness, for paying attention by bringing awareness to those experiences, those little sudden reminders. We learn to meet them. We set an intention to meet them with equanimity, acknowledging their presence without judgment, without all kinds of second arrow stuff. Our practice helps us remain grounded in the present moment rather than becoming consumed by fear of the future or longing for the past. Those are the two things that can really consume us at this stage of life. The what ifs and if only this had happened or if only I could go back. Old age, because we know, is marked by heightened emotional and sensory experiences. I've really noticed this, perhaps some of you had. The sky becomes more brilliant, the weather changes become more intense, the explosion of color in spring becomes more intense. All of these bring more intensity. Just this new sort of shift in perception as we age. And this intensified awareness can be both a blessing and a challenge because it stirs deep emotions and often triggers memories. And from a Buddhist perspective, this heightened sensitivity is a unique opportunity for insight into the nature of reality. Heightened awareness is not something to shy away from. It's something to lean into, to embrace. The vividness of the world as we age can serve as a reminder to savor the present moment fully. When we experience the fleeting beauty of a breeze in spring, or any kind of sensory experience, when we open our sense doors, it really becomes a meditation on the transient nature of joy, that we can't hold on to it, but we need to savor it when it happens. Each experience, however small, is a chance to practice gratitude and presence. Now, at the same time, we often are hit with a flood of memories and emotions as we age. And this can be understood through the Buddhist concept of mental formations, memories that resonate through time and often bring unresolved feelings to the surface. So it's really a time for some revisiting of that. Rather than seeing these memories as burdens, our practice invites us to observe them with compassion, with gratitude, with detachment. We learn to let go of the attachments and aversions that these memories evoked, freeing ourselves from past regrets, from the hold of those past regrets. Another aspect of this period of life is that there's a loss of control. It can be deeply unsettling, especially in our culture, where we tend to isolate, where we tend to value independence, we value self-determination. But this loss is not a tragedy, it's a truth to be embraced, because the Buddha reminded us, instructed us to welcome all experience, not just the pleasant ones. Never push them away just because they're unpleasant. And never is this truer than it is at this stage of life. We know that the illusion of control is one of the primary causes of human suffering. The illusion of control. We spend so much time of our lives striving to control our circumstances, clinging to the belief that we can shape the world to our liking. But aging reveals the futility of this effort, because our bodies, our relationships, and even our sense of identity are shifting, which reminds us that nothing is truly within our grasp. And while this realization is humbling, it is also liberating, because it invites us, it almost forces us to let go of our attachments and just rest comfortably in the flow of life as it continues to unfold. Then we get into this whole notion, this whole space of moving closer to death, which most of us would just as soon ignore. This unfamiliar feeling in the body, though, is not something to fear again, but to explore with curiosity. In Buddhism, death is not an end, it is a natural part of the cycle of life. There's a practice in Buddhism of contemplating death that helps us let go of our attachments and focus in the moment on what truly matters, so we can live more with mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. If we avail ourselves of it, aging is an ideal time to deepen our spiritual practice, because all the distractions of being young, such as striving for a career, striving for security, sexual desire, social and economic ambition, have really faded into the background. And this opens a space for more contemplation and introspection. We have outgrown so many of the concerns of our younger selves. They're just not there anymore. And this shift aligns with the Buddhist path, which encourages us to turn inward and seek liberation from the cycle of craving and dissatisfaction. At this stage of life, our senses are less tied to the outside world. The detachment from the external world can be a real stepping stone into greater depth of spiritual insight. We learn to detach somewhat from external stimuli, but also from some of the thoughts and emotions that arise. We learn not to be so identified with our thoughts and emotions, as if they are who we are, the essence of who we are, rather than just stories that we latch on to. The practice of non-attachment helps us cultivate that inner peace, even as the external world changes, because with that we become more grounded. The heightened awareness of impermanence in old age can inspire us to a deeper commitment to our path, to the precepts, to the practices. And it's an ideal time in our lives to redouble our commitment to the path, knowing that time is limited and facing impermanence is a wake-up call. It's like, get it done, get to work on it. Embrace that stronger urge to cultivate compassion, wisdom, and mindfulness. We don't know when our time will be up, but I find I love the wisdom and the ease and the spaciousness that has come with this phase of life, despite all the downside, because it's become a source of joy and purpose in my life. It's given me a unique perspective that I've never had before, and especially with regard to interconnectedness. I just feel that more profoundly than I ever have. Our individual experiences are different, but the fundamental truths of aging, suffering, and impermanence hit all of us at some point. Everyone ends up here sooner or later, and we ignore it at our peril. And this shared humanity is a source of wisdom, that as we age, we can offer that to others, the sort of the wisdom of the elders. And traditionally in Buddhist communities, especially in the East, elders are revered for their insight and experience. They don't just warehouse people like we do here. And this understanding of impermanence and capacity for compassion makes us, them, valuable teachers and guides. We not only find peace within ourselves, but we can inspire others by our lives as an example to walk the path. I don't need to tell you old age is a time of profound transformation. It brings challenges, certainly, loss, uncertainty, and the inevitability of death, but it offers tremendous opportunities for growth, insight, and liberation. Because through the lens of the Buddha's teachings, we see aging as a natural part of the cycle of life, not some terrible thing that's going to happen. A chance to deepen our understanding of impermanence, cultivate compassion, and rather than resist the changes of aging, we are invited to embrace them with curiosity and equanimity. Each moment, however fleeting during this phase, is an opportunity to connect with the present, let go of attachments, and find peace as our lives unfold. In this way, the so-called autumn of life can be a profound beauty and a source of spiritual awakening, a reminder that even as the world slips from our grasp, the wisdom of the Dharma is always there within our reach. So those are some thoughts on the challenges of aging.